Well, Goldberg is back. What's up, everyone? GoodMicWork back at you. As promised, I told you guys I would try to come up here after Raw to discuss the return of Bill Goldberg. And I gotta say, I was pleasantly surprised with the way that whole thing went down. So we're going to talk about that here and the rest of Monday Night Raw. The rest of Raw was nothing special, so this will be a quick casual recap, and I'll probably come up here later in the week and talk about it a little bit more, as well as whatever takes place on SmackDown tomorrow night. Just a quick couple of programming notes for you to let you know what's coming up in the future. First of all, as far as the audio for this commentary goes, it might sound a little bit muffled. I've been finding myself needing to record in 2 different locations in the house, and as usual, just like my previous place as well, one of those locations is just the acoustics aren't very good, and it's just very, very muffled. So this, unless I can tweak some shit in the audio, this might not sound exactly the way some of my other commentaries do, so I apologize for that. I do have some pretty big things on the horizon. I've been casually working on 2 different DVD reviews. I am way overdue in doing a DVD review. I think it's been well over a year, close to a year and a half. I even promised you guys one back in August. So I found 2 that I'm going to kind of do, and I'm slowly, casually working on those, but I'm not rushing them. But they are in the works, and they'll be up soon. I also have one really special episode that I've just began on, but I'm not going to reveal what that is to you yet. And I have begun the process of re-editing the WrestleMania Memories commentary. For those of you who don't know, that was pulled down by WWE. And after I disputed the claim, it still came back denied. So I have to basically re-edit that thing and take out the video and replace it with pictures. And it's going to take me just a little bit of time to do that as soon as I can find time to finish it. But I will have that re-uploaded here in the near future as well. Let's get into Raw. We're going to talk about Goldberg first. They sure did wait till the last minute. I don't even think they began the Goldberg segment until 7 minutes before the hour, and they ran really long too. I started having flashbacks, or nightmares I should say, of Halloween Havoc 1998, where Goldberg and DDP's match wasn't shown because they went long on the pay-per-view. And I was like, wow, wouldn't that be ironic if that happened to Goldberg on Raw? But WWE, they have their shit together with USA Network. I guess they're allowed to run long. This thing went, I think, almost till 8:15 or 11:15 on the East Coast. And a lot of that, in part, was due to the crowd's reaction to Goldberg. There was several times where he had to pause and stop talking and let them get the chants out of their system. Reminded me of any time that any big legend comes back. You know, that one time Hogan came back all those years ago and the fans literally would not let him speak on SmackDown. It was kind of like that. I mean, the crowd response for Goldberg, I could not have asked for anything more. There was a small part of me that actually thought that the crowd might shit on him. I mean, we saw what happened with Batista years ago, and Goldberg's been gone even longer than Batista. Granted, Goldberg was much more over at his peak, I think, than Batista was. You know, still, it's been much longer for Goldberg. The fans are kind of over him. He's a lot older now. The fans have seen a lot of great wrestlers come and go since Bill Goldberg. And the way the fans are so snarky and smarky all the time, I wasn't sure if they were going to accept yet another part-timer coming in here and taking up a big pay-per-view spot and big payday and all that, because they tend to get butthurt about that sort of thing. But that did not take place at all. The fans welcomed Goldberg back with open arms, and I couldn't believe it. I thought it was awesome. And on top of that, Goldberg did a good job. First of all, he looked great, although he was wearing the big jacket. So you couldn't really tell or couldn't really gauge what kind of true shape he was in. But he still looked very good, and he definitely doesn't look his age. And the promo he cut was fantastic. I was a little nervous at first when he made his entrance. And by the way, kudos to WWE for using his original Goldberg WCW music instead of the revamped version that they used. I much preferred his first theme. But then he started like shaking hands with the audience members, and I was thinking to myself, this isn't the fire-breathing, snorting, spitting monster that just goes out there and demolishes people. He seems almost human now, which kind of goes against the Goldberg character. And then in his promo, he starts talking about how he wants to be a role model for kids, much like John Cena does, and we all know how the fans feel about him. So Goldberg wasn't, character-wise the same Goldberg that we remember, but he was still very intense on the mic. He was awesome. He talked some serious shit, and he was believable, and he flat out accepted the challenge of Paul Heyman, even basically alluded to Brock Lesnar being a little bitch for not having the guts to challenge him to his face and sending his fat manager to do his dirty work for him. So a lot of that stuff was very good. The promo did not come off as overly scripted, which I'm wondering if they gave Goldberg just the freedom to go out there and do his thing. I mean, you'd think he would need a little bit of help or hand-holding. It has been 12 years, since this guy has been in a wrestling ring in front of a huge audience cutting a promo. So he's probably a tad bit rusty, but it sure as hell did not show. And Goldberg, I thought, was never the biggest talker. He was never that great on the mic. I never enjoyed any promo he ever did in WWE or WCW, but this one was easily the best he's ever done, and it was very entertaining, and it was a very entertaining segment. They didn't do anything with Paul Heyman. I thought it would be a type of deal where Paul Heyman would be in the ring, calling out Bill Goldberg, maybe even Goldberg spears Paul Heyman or something like that. Paul Heyman appeared via satellite earlier on in the show and, talked shit about Goldberg. And then they saved the final segment for Michael Cole. He was in the ring by himself. He brought out Goldberg and basically conducted the interview old school style. So I was worried how that was going to come off, and I was like, oh, God, this might suck. But, the crowd reaction plus the great mic work that Goldberg had done on Raw, I think made the overall segment a huge success. And it made me forget about how shitty the first 3 hours of Raw was because it's great to see Goldberg back. Sometimes when these legends come back, sometimes you're happier to see certain ones than you are others. And this was one that I have to admit I wasn't that thrilled about seeing. Like I've said many, many times, I was not a huge Goldberg fan. But, I may have changed my tune after tonight. It was really nice to see the reaction that he got. And granted, that could be just 1 week. We saw what a big failure Batista's return was. I mentioned that earlier on. However, when he came back that first night, the crowd did cheer for him. So it is possible that everybody could still turn on Goldberg. I draw comparisons between him and the Ultimate Warrior a little bit because of their look, because of how intense they were, because of the entrance and the music and the overall package. Those guys got over huge and really, really quick. And a lot of people can argue that they got that fame and notoriety a little bit too fast when they were still a little bit too green. But that doesn't change the fact that they are huge icons in the business. You can't change that. So I'm all for Goldberg getting an opportunity. And we've talked about the match with Brock Lesnar and how are any of the fans going to believe that Goldberg stands a chance in this thing. I still don't know how that's possible. Yes, Bill Goldberg looks very good for 50. But, believably, there's no way he's going to be able to take Brock Lesnar. So a lot of us have been speculating that there could be some interference, there could be a shady finish that sets up a rematch or something like that, or sets Bill Goldberg on another course. I don't know if they're bringing him in to just give Brock his win back. I mean, if Brock does win, you have to wonder how. Goldberg's not going to come in just to get squashed in one match and leave. You would think he's got to come back in to do a couple of things, be around for WrestleMania, possibly do the Hall of Fame this year or the year after, and close out his career in a nice way, not come back for one night and get squashed. So even though the match on paper isn't totally believable, I'm optimistic. I always try to be that way. I think maybe, just maybe, Goldberg and Brock Lesnar can surprise us. A lot of Brock's matches lately have been a tad bit boring because it's nothing but a German suplex fest, and it's German after German after German. If these guys get a little creative out there, which they're going to have to do because physically I'm sure Goldberg can't do too much, I think they have the potential to surprise a lot of people. So hopefully we are looking at our first good Survivor Series in a very long time. So given what we saw tonight on Monday Night Raw, I'm willing to give Brock and Goldberg a chance, and I'm actually looking forward to the match. Brock Lesnar will be on Raw next week, it was announced, to respond to Bill Goldberg. So they're going to stretch this thing out. That's going to be still a week before Hell in the Cell. So you're not going to have these guys on TV together for a while. I would guess another 3 or 4 weeks. I'm assuming they'll probably do a contract signing or something like that to get these two guys in the ring. Possibly a little bit of physicality, maybe one spear, maybe one German, something like that. Maybe just some pushing and shoving, who knows. But they've got many weeks here to build this as a mega match, that we're not going to have too many more of. Brock Lesnar and Bill Goldberg is a match that I truly thought would never be able to happen again. Number one was because of Bill's age, and number two, he doesn't seem like he has any interest in working with the WWE again. But once all that shit with the video game came out, that got the fans speculating, and I guess it's a pretty much done deal now. Anytime any former star appears on that video game, they're coming back to WWE. Ultimate Warrior, Bill Goldberg, Sting last year, so we've seen this time and time again. And now I'm curious who the hell they're going to put on the cover next year. So let me know what you guys think about the return of Bill Goldberg, how you see the match with Brock Lesnar at Survivor Series going, and any other creative ideas you might want to pitch to me. Throw them at me. As far as the rest of Raw, I really don't want to get too much into it. The show opened with Kevin Owens. Chris Jericho was out there with him. Owens cut a very good promo, and so did Jericho. Jericho is the greatest thing on WWE right now, and I believe the referee from last week made Jericho's list, so that referee is up shit's creek without a paddle, to say the least. You don't want to be on that list. And it's funny how over this list of Jericho is getting, which, if memory serves, it almost seems like this thing came about by accident. Remember a couple weeks back, when was it, when they were advertising Jericho to have a highlight reel with like a mystery guest, and then they never did? And instead they did some sort of backstage segment, and that's the first time I can remember seeing Chris Jericho's list. So I'm wondering if it's just something he came up with on the fly and has now gotten over, but it's pretty damn hilarious. And then Seth Rollins came out to the stage, started cutting promos on the both of them, tried to stir up drama between the two of them, basically calling Chris Jericho just a lackey and basically just trying to stir the pot. And then, of course, there was the wonderful line by Seth Rollins, and it's one of the things I hate the most about the WWE today. It's when Seth Rollins called Chris Jericho Sparkle Crotch, and he said it quickly and moved right on, and I heard that, and I'm like, Sparkle Crotch, that's fucking hilarious. But the problem is, much like tater tots or much like anything else that the WWE does, they literally shove it down your fucking throats until you choke on it. And as soon as I heard them say Sparkle Crotch, I'm like, oh, that's hilarious, but the problem is, we're going to hear it over and over and over and over. And I think we heard the term Sparkle Crotch used in that promo at least a dozen other times, and they were even yelling it out during the match, and the announcers were talking about it, and it was trending on Twitter. So before it even gets off the ground, it's already dead and old and stale, and that's what pisses me off. I miss the days where a wrestler could kind of like subtly drop a joke or subtly drop a line, and only the cool wrestling fans would pick up on it, and then you'd slowly see the wheels start to turn and signs appear in the crowd, and then it would just get over organically. The WWE, every time they are handed something like this that might be kind of funny, they just fucking ruin it. It's just the way they are in 2016. It sucks. But I never even had a chance to enjoy Sparkle Crotch because WWE killed it before it even got started. Jericho goes on to say that he can beat Seth Rollins anytime, any place, so the match is made for Jericho and Rollins to kick off the show. Jericho asks Kevin Owens not to be at ringside. He says, I don't need you. Kevin Owens offers to stay there and help him out, but he doesn't want him there. And then we go into the match. And Kevin Owens ends up coming out anyway, and Jericho's got Rollins locked in the walls of Jericho, and Owens is trying to help him out by moving the rope so Seth can't get to it. The referee spots him and starts trying to get Kevin Owens out of there, which is just enough distraction for Jericho to get caught and get pinned, and Kevin Owens kind of cost Chris Jericho another match. So they're trying to stir the pot with Jericho and Owens, possibly leading to a split in their near future. I love it the way they're trying to just convince themselves that they're still BFFs and they're still there for each other, because you can see that they are slowly deteriorating. And it was even announced later on Raw that there will be a triple threat match next week between the three of them. So Jericho, Owens, and Rollins will be facing each other in a triple threat non-title match, I think in the main event of Raw next week. Also, later on in the night, I believe Owens and Jericho were arguing backstage, and Stephanie approached him. I mean, they're screaming at each other like two kids, and then Mama Stephanie shows up and calms them both down, and in the process, she goes ahead and accepts the challenge from Daniel Bryan and Shane McMahon for Survivor Series, for the three big matches, the 5-on-5 men's, the 5-on-5 women's, and the 5-on-5 tag teams. She accepted the challenge for all of them, so those three matches are now set for Survivor Series. We just have to figure out who the participants are going to be. Man, the rest of the show was really garbage, to be honest with you. Looks like they really put all their eggs in the Goldberg basket. It was all about Goldberg, and it seemed like they really didn't pay attention creatively to anything else on the show, because it was all just kind of lame and generic. So you had Big E taking on Sheamus. Sheamus and Cesaro are still on each other's case and not getting along. This time it's Cesaro who's out on the floor, fucking with his phone on social media, broadcasting the entire match live on Facebook. Sheamus ends up getting distracted by that, which allowed Big E to roll him up, adding more dissension to the Sheamus and Cesaro team. However, next week they have to team up and take on New Day. They're already wrestling them at Hell in a Cell for the titles, so next week we're going to get that match early, but it's going to be a non-title match and basically a warm-up or a practice run for Sheamus and Cesaro. I actually can get behind a little bit. I've been mentioning this lately. I, for some reason, am just optimistic about Cesaro and Sheamus. I don't know what it is. Neither one of these two guys do a whole lot for me individually. I'm just as frustrated with everybody else with how Cesaro is constantly being overlooked, and Sheamus I literally just don't care about at all. But there's something about this tag team that I just like a little bit. So I'm hoping that they go forward with it and they end up becoming a solid team. And it's just a long build to get to that point before they before they accept each other. So that's kind of the direction I think they're going, and I hope they do. I don't know why, but I'm just optimistic about this team. I'm starting to get less optimistic about Gallows and Anderson 1 week after they completely destroyed Enzo and Cass. Cass made pretty quick work of Carl Anderson in a one-on-one match, which, you know, I mean, I like Cass. He's a big, intimidating guy. I didn't even mind that he defeated Carl Anderson, but it seemed like it was more of a squash than anything else, and as soon as we think Anderson and Gallows are back to their ass-kicking ways, they get showed up by Enzo and Cass on Raw. So more of that 50-50 booking shit, which is so fucking annoying. We had a couple of upsets on Monday Night Raw as well. We had Bo Dallas defeating Neville pretty much clean, and then after the match, he aggressively beat the shit out of Curtis Axel, which I mentioned last week that I thought he was going to do. It was only a matter of time before he attacked Kurt Axel, so I don't know what kind of push Bo Dallas is getting, but it's pretty surprising to see him defeat Neville the way he did. And then Dana Brooke scored a victory over Bayley in much the same way. So Dana Brooke and Bo Dallas both scored pretty sizable victories tonight on Monday Night Raw, which I guess is good to see. I mean, why have these guys on TV if they're just going to be a fucking joke? Dana has looked like a pile of shit ever since she's been there. You know, throw her a bone and to have her beat somebody, and she did. She beat Bayley. Bo Dallas, same thing. Speaking of victories, Braun Strowman, we saw last week where he won a handicap match, and he's been calling out Mick Foley, give me some real competition. So Foley's answer this week is to give him 3 guys instead of 2. But these 3 guys collectively looked weaker than the 2 guys did last week, and Strowman just beat the hell out of these 3, and then basically did the same thing, got on the mic, and was calling out Mick Foley, this is all you got, this is all you got. That prompts Sami Zayn to come out, which was interesting. I don't know if I want to see Zayn working with Strowman, but he came out there, stared down Braun Strowman, and Strowman, who was just acting like a complete grizzly bear in the squash match against these 3 guys, just shoves Zayn to the ground and then leaves with his music playing. Why did Strowman not eat Sami Zayn? Why did Strowman not have the blood of Sami Zayn running down his chin and his beard? The way he was demolishing those 3 opponents, for him just to push him like he's on a fucking playground and walk away, I didn't know how I felt about that. We had a pretty entertaining Rusev and Lana segment too. I could watch Rusev all day. He's fucking great. So he's out there with Lana. They're bitching at Roman Reigns and pissed off, and then he proceeds to show his entire family on the Titantron and give everybody a history lesson on the Rusev family. His mother, his father, his grandmother, his fucking dog, his brother, everybody. And I was getting a kick out of it, and then Roman Reigns came out there and interfered. And right in the middle of his boring-ass promo, Lana kind of slaps him, distracts him just enough to where Rusev can also nail him with a kick, and then Rusev just proceeds to beat the hell out of Roman Reigns, you know, bashing him with the steel steps and then putting him in the accolade on the steps in the ring, and stands tall on that. And those 2 guys will be facing each other inside of the cell also at Hell in the Cell. So we've got 3 matches inside the cell. At this point, with this feud, as great as Rusev is, I don't see him taking the belt back from Roman right now. I think they're going to give Roman a run with the U.S. belt, which is fine with me because it keeps him away from the Universal belt. And if he finishes up business here with Rusev at Hell in the Cell and then moves on to another contender, I guess I'm fine with it. That's probably what's going to happen. Nothing really else happened on Raw. We had a couple of 6-man matches. One of them was a cruiserweight match involving T.J. Perkins and Brian Kendrick, and the other one was Golden Truth and Mark Henry, I think, taking on Titus O'Neil and the Shining Stars. So just some throwaway segments there. Cruiserweight division, I'm a little bit concerned for. You know, sometimes the crowd seems a little flat for the matches. I think a lot of the match placement could have a lot to do with how this segment or how this division in the WWE succeeds. I think maybe if you open some Raws with some great cruiserweight matches when the crowd is hot, when the crowd is anxious, when they're on their feet, when they're ready to rock and roll, you know, put 2 of these guys in there to open up the show in an awesome kick-ass cruiserweight match, it might be just what you need to jumpstart the crowd, you know, and get them really, really, really ready for the show. So I think if they scatter some of these around and play with it and tinker it a little bit, the cruiserweight division can still be a big deal in the WWE, but it didn't really feel like it tonight on Raw too much. So as far as Hell in the Cell goes, we have the 3 cell matches. We have Sasha Banks versus Charlotte. We've got Seth Rollins versus Kevin Owens, and we have Rusev versus Roman Reigns. We're also going to get Sheamus and Cesaro, of course, taking on the New Day, and we're getting a rematch between T.J. Perkins and Brian Kendrick. So on paper, it doesn't look too bad. Speaking of the women's Hell in the Cell match, the only hype they did for that tonight on Raw was a couple of interviews, one with Charlotte and one with Sasha Banks. They did them with Lita, kind of the sit-down with Michael Cole type of format, only Lita. And Charlotte was a complete bitch, and Sasha was pretty cool. And we'll see how they do. I mean, WWE's making a very big deal about this being a history-making event, 2 women for the first time in the Hell in the Cell. Plus, these girls have a ton of heat. To me, they shouldn't be in the cell just because it's the first time only. They should be in the cell because the feud calls for it, and it almost does. I mean, these ladies have had some brutal battles with each other, and it's time to finally see who is the best. So, putting them inside the cell, I'm rooting for them to do well. I think they will. Next week, I'm sure we will get the final showdown between the two. They'll probably be on TV. A lot of people didn't like them just doing interviews tonight, but I'm okay with that. I'm okay with them changing it up. WWE is really trying to hype this up like it's a big match, and sometimes when you have these epic matches, all you get is video packages, or all you get is interviews. Happens all the time, so this is not rare. Next week, I'm sure they will both be on the show. They'll probably both be in the same ring. There will probably be some physicality involved, so I wouldn't worry about it. Maybe even a contract signing. I don't know. All I know is for sure those 2 girls will be around next week to get in each other's faces, so never fear. Before I get out of here, speaking of the women, Mickie James was announced to be returning to the WWE. She's going to be challenging Asuka for the NXT Women's title at the next TakeOver show, which is in Toronto, which I believe is the night before Survivor Series. So that's going to be Asuka's next challenger, and I think that's great. I love Mickie James. It's going to be great to see her back, and I'm sure she's there to put over Asuka. She should be. Bayley has not transitioned so well from NXT onto the main roster, so the longer they want to keep Asuka in NXT, the better. So they can just keep having her run with that title, because I think I like her character more in NXT than I probably would on the main roster. But she's going to have to be on the main roster at some point, and when she gets there, I'm hoping she will be the women's version of Brock Lesnar. She is awesome. Our friend Paige is back in the news. I just talked about her last week when she was suspended for 60 days and some of the choices and the decisions that she's making. Well, now she's decided to propose to her boyfriend, who's also still married, by the way, in Puerto Rico. She got down on her knee and presented him with a ring, I guess, or something like that, and I think he accepted. And they are now engaged to be married, even though Alberto's not even divorced from his previous wife yet. So I don't know what's going on with these two. Paige just seems like she's rebelling a lot. Somebody did point out to me that they took her out of the intro for Raw. So WWE, they might be just set to release her. I wouldn't even mind if they did. They probably should. It seems like she's trying to push the WWE's buttons. I've been seeing her posting a lot of pictures on Twitter lately of her and Alberto, and she just doesn't seem like she gives a fuck. And she might just need to be let go. Let her go out and live her life for a couple years. She will come back. She will end this relationship with Del Rio. I will promise you right now, without knowing either of these two personally, I know the way wrestling relationships work, and there's absolutely no way these two are going to get married and be together 20 years from now. Absolutely not. I give them a year or 2 max. That might sound cynical, but that's just the way it seems to be in wrestling. Also on the TNA front, apparently Billy Corgan has sued Dixie Carter and TNA. He is actually taking them to court. He is desperately trying to purchase this company, but apparently he can't. TNA owes money to all sorts of people. They owe money to television networks. They're just in a world of shit. They're barely alive. There's talk of the talent being able to get out of their contracts now because TNA is so far in debt. There's been rumors of them selling their tape library and rebranding under a different name. Billy Corgan seems like he really wants this company. He wants to take control of it. But because of all the different partners and the different ownerships and, just people not cooperating, the sale of TNA is not able to go through, and now I think he's trying to take them to court to say, hey, look, this is a failing business unless you sell it to me. If you can force these people to give up or do whatever they need to do and let me take control, it's the only way this company stands a chance of surviving. So it sounds like a complete and total and utter fucking disaster, and I would hate to be associated with TNA right now. It just seems like it's so unstable, and whatever they do, whatever happens, I hope they are able to figure this out to where some sort of wrestling company can stay in business here and give guys a place to go and get work. In the meantime, the tape library is up in the air. It's still possible WWE could take it. There has been talk of them revamping the WWE network a little bit, offering different tiers, maybe a $5, a $10, and a $15 tier, where each one has their own different perks, and there's even talk about them possibly showing Ring of Honor programming, which is completely bizarre to even hear. But if they have this 24/7 network, these promotions might be able to pay them a little bit to air some of their shit on the network, so it might not be a bad idea. So WWE may be changing how they do it and having different kinds of subscription plans available. I'll go for the top dollar one every time. I don't care. I want to have everything that WWE Network offers. I want to have that accessible to me. So if it goes up to $15.99, fine, I'll pay it. I don't give a shit. But it is nice to hear that there is a cheaper option for people that might just want to watch the pay-per-views, or just watch random stuff who don't watch WWE Network all the time. And I don't watch the network all the time either, but I would just like to know that I have it available to me. So I'm willing to pay for the full-on subscription. So them changing it up, could help. They might be able to get a lot more subscriptions if they had one option for people to pay a cheaper price. So, all in all, sounds fine to me. WWE's pretty ambitious with their network. I'm not going to question any of the decisions they make. So far, it's been a pretty damn good success, that network, and it's a nice tool, and I love having it. So that is it for me for tonight. I am out of here. I will be back up here later this week, probably. If SmackDown really, really sucks tomorrow night, if there's nothing special on the show, you might not hear from me again until next Monday night's Raw, the go-home show, unless I'm able to finish up one of my other projects earlier to give it to you this week. Like I said, I'm working on 2 different DVD reviews. I want to get that WrestleMania Memories video re-uploaded, and I also want to work on a Q&A. And I'm also working on a special episode. So there's lots in the works. So just be patient, and you'll have a lot of content coming to you between now and the end of the year. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Check out my website, GoodMicWorkCommentaries.com. Like my Facebook page and follow me on Twitter. You can also listen to me on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. And don't forget to tell every single friend you know about me either. I will catch you guys in a few days. Until next time, peace.